because it always messes up my screen and then I have to stutter. Okie dokie. Okay, so hi everybody. Thanks for coming and Happy New Year. So to remind you, or if you haven't been to any of these meetings before, my name is Chloe and I'm a biodiversity officer for the council. So as most of you know by now, this group is a subgroup of the local nature partnership, and we're aimed at giving you some practical advice on how you can help nature in your local area. So we're also aiming to connect you guys with each other as well. So if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, that would be really great. So before we do get started, it's not going to be a very long meeting tonight. I haven't got that many slides, but I was hoping that you guys would give me a bit of feedback about what you'd like from the group in the coming year. So I am hoping to put a bit more time into it this year, into doing things between meetings. As you know, as lovely as the meetings are, I want to make sure that this is an active group and that you guys are getting something from it, really. So we do have relatively limited capacity in terms of running lots of events and things, but I would like to run some more this year, and just generally touch base with you more between meetings. So obviously you don't have to say anything now, but if you could have a think about it, and we can have a chat about some ideas at the end of the meeting, that'd be great. So as usual, we're going to take a look at our featured habitat section. And this time we're looking at urban habitats. So this is quite a nice one to start the year off with, I think, because there is a lot of practical things that we can do to help them. So urban habitats is quite a broad term, and includes things like buildings, parks and gardens, etc. So basically anything man-made, really. Currently, urban habitats support around 13 of the county's priority species, though none of them are specific to this habitat type. So urban habitats make up around 15% of the land cover in the county, so it actually is quite a significant portion of our land use, and obviously it's only going to get bigger. So there's a real opportunity to enhance biodiversity in our urban areas. So in terms of their importance for wildlife, there are a few main points to mention. A big one is that urban habitat is really important for overall connectivity in the landscape. So for example, pockets of habitat such as parks and urban commons can provide stepping stones for species between areas of more natural habitat. And then within that, features such as grassy verges and hedgerows can connect these pockets of habitat throughout the urban areas. So as well as this, verges and bee-friendly gardens also have a huge part to play in the conservation of pollinators in our urban areas and within the county as a whole. So urban habitats are also particularly important for nesting birds and roosting bats. I'm sure a lot of us here have had, at least one pair of house sparrows or starlings or something nesting in our roofs in the spring. And then another iconic urban species is the hedgehog, which has been recorded in most urban settlements in NPT, with urban parks and garden habitats providing really important resources for them. Some reptiles have also adapted to do well in urban areas, particularly the slow worm, which you'll often find if you've got a compost heap in your garden, one of them would be curled up in there in the summer, warming up. So there are some particularly important sites in this category. So for example, Margam Park is one of the best sites for bats in the UK. And it supports 14 out of the 18 species that we have in the country. And then we've also got an important breeding site for toads in Cwmclydych Pond. And then you'll also find rare bumblebees, including the brown-banded carder and shrill carder bee, which can be found foraging on patches of wildflowers in Samfields and Aberavon. So yeah, these are just some of the species that can be found in urban areas of NPT. I've already mentioned most of them. So we've got hedgehogs, toads, shrill carder bee, house sparrows, slow worms, and bats as well. But one thing that I haven't mentioned is some of our urban verges are also amazing for, lots of different wildflowers, but orchids as well. So the picture in the top right corner is of a road verge in Longford. And this verge didn't get cut during lockdown. And then lots and lots of these southern marsh orchids popped up. And now it's part of the NPT Brief Friendly scheme, and there's hundreds of them there, which is really amazing. And then the other species, which I haven't mentioned yet, is the swift. So this is another really iconic species in the summer months. And swifts nest almost exclusively in buildings, so they are highly dependent on man-made structures to complete their life cycle. Unfortunately, our swift populations are in decline across Wales, and this is largely due to the loss of nesting sites as we refurbish or demolish old buildings. So we are currently doing some work to help our breeding swifts in NPT, which I will come to talk about a bit later. So based on the number of priority species that they support around 5% of our priority species in the county. And the limited knowledge that we have on the condition and the connectivity of urban habitats, the state of nature of urban habitats in NPT has been assessed as fair. So it's quite a difficult category to assess, as whilst we can see that sort of on a large scale, connectivity between urban landscapes is quite good. There's not really any real way of assessing habitat connectivity. So, for example, we can't know the level of connectivity between gardens for species such as hedgehog and slowworms, because it's too difficult to assess that. So, as you can imagine, there unfortunately are many threats to wildlife in urban areas. So a really big one is loss of connectivity, with urban areas expanding all the time, and the remaining areas of green space within urban settlements is often being lost. So there's also the loss of nesting and roosting sites for birds and bats due to refurbishment and demolition of older buildings, like I mentioned about the swifts. Another big threat as well is the inappropriate management of habitat in urban areas. So, for example, constant mowing through the flowering season to keep things tidy, as well as the growing trend of having sort of low maintenance, very neat and tidy gardens, which have very little value for wildlife. So one of the main things that need to change in urban areas is that anything that is good for wildlife in urban areas is really by design. It just sort of happens to be wildlife habitat. So there is a real need for biodiversity to be at the forefront of decision making in urban areas, and more green spaces within urban areas need to be managed specifically for nature. But the good news is that there is lots that can be done to help urban biodiversity. So what can you do to help? So in a lot of ways, this is the easiest habitat category to get involved with practically, because you can do so much of it from home. So a big thing you can do to help urban wildlife is to help change public perceptions. So you can do this mainly by educating your friends and family, especially when it comes to sort of the neat and tidy culture. So maybe, if chat to your neighbour if you see them spraying herbicides, or convince your friend or your family member to leave a patch of their lawn long over the summer months. And then another easy one is to make your home a bit more wildlife friendly. So, you could do simple things such as planting some native plants in the garden or in pots by the front door if you don't have a garden. Or maybe if you have a lawn, you could leave it long over the summer and cut and collect it in the autumn. Or maybe, if your garden isn't very well connected to next door, you could cut a hole in the fence for hedgehogs or something. I won't list all of the things to do because there are a lot. But, have a Google and have a think about what you could do. And then the next point, obviously you guys are already involved with the local groups because you are here. But another thing you could do would be to encourage others to join you. Obviously the more people we get involved, the better. So if you've got friends and family that show a little bit of interest in nature, tell them to come. And then another point is to record your sightings in and around where you live. This is really important, actually, a really important way to help wildlife, because it informs planning decisions, which can be particularly important in urban areas, really. So you could also think about what your place of work could do to help nature in urban areas. Encourage your employer or encourage your business to play their part. So, for example, if your company responsible for any land that could be managed in a more wildlife-friendly way, or could they put some bird boxes or bat boxes on their side of their buildings, anywhere like that, anything like that. And then the last thing I would say is that if you're looking for any advice on anything that you or your group might like to do to help nature in urban areas, just please get in touch with us. We've got a decent sized team now, and we're really keen to help you in any way that we can. So as usual, I've put together a list of events that are coming up, as well as activities that you could do with your group or at home over the next few months as well. So first of all, the RSPB Big Garden Bird Watch is coming up at the end of the month. It's really easy to get involved with this. You just sign up on their website, and then all you have to do is count the birds that you see in your garden, or if you don't have a garden, you can do it from your balcony or from your local park, and you just do that for 1 hour. So they've got loads of resources on their website that can help, and they've got a garden bird ID guide that you can download if you're not very confident. Yeah, I'd really encourage you to get involved if you can. It provides, really important population data that gives us an idea of how sort of different garden species are doing in the country. And it's also quite a nice activity. It's quite a calming and zen thing to do on the weekend. And then moving on to February, World Wetlands Day is on the 2nd of Feb. And the theme for this year is It's Time for Wetland Restoration. And it's quite good timing actually, because I'm imagining they planned it. But the Lost Peatlands project is running a volunteer day on Sunday, the 5th of February, to do some peatland restoration at Pennycummoedd Wind Farm. So the tasks that you'll be doing include the removal of conifer trees and planting of sphagnum moss as well. So if you would like to get stuck into some practical conservation, this would be a good opportunity to do that. I popped the link to the event on the bottom of the slide, which has all of the information if anybody is interested in that. And then following on from the wetland theme, an activity you could do in February is go on a toad patrol. Brinkhoff Environment Group have been running patrols for a really long time now. And they're always looking for an extra pair of hands to help out. So if you'd like to get involved, please do get in touch with them. I think Lynn is on the call with us tonight. I'm not sure if I saw her join. But yeah, Lynn, if you want to pop your contact details in the chat for people to reach you with, if you like, or you can do a pitch if you want. Okay, so moving into, also in February, sorry. Between the 14th and the 21st of February is National Nest Box Week. February is a really good time to put up bird boxes. Most species will be prospecting nest sites by then, or if you already have a nest box in the garden, it's also really important to clean them out before nesting season kicks off. So Feb's also a good time to do that as well. But the reason I have swifts on this slide is that, as I mentioned earlier, we are doing some work to help our swifts in NPT. And I'm hoping to potentially hold an event during Nest Box Week to give away some swift boxes. So I need to work out some logistics, but hopefully we will have some boxes available by then. I'm waiting for them to be delivered. But yeah, I was thinking it might be nice to get a guest speaker in, hopefully, to give a talk about swifts in NPT, how you can help them, and then also an opportunity to take home a box and a swift caller as well, if you'd like one. So once I've got more details about this, I will send them to you, but I just need to firm up the plans first. And then on to March. I can't give an exact date for this yet, but hopefully the State of Nature and Nature Recovery Action Plan will be published in March, which is very exciting. So the LNP have been working really hard on this for a long time. And there's a huge amount of information in this document, as well as loads of practical ideas of how you can help nature in NPT. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for this when it's released. And then between the 17th of March and the 2nd of April is the Great British Spring Clean. This is a Keep Britain Tidy campaign. So if you're part of a group, You could organise a litter pick maybe, or even if you're just on your own, you could head out for a walk and just pick up litter that you come across. If you go to their website, which I've linked at the bottom of the slide, you can pledge a bag. I think they're hoping to get to 500,000 bags pledged, and they're on about 450,000 at the moment. So every little helps. And then lastly, a nice little activity you could do at home in March is to give early emerging bumblebees a hand. So I was thinking just a nice little activity you could do in the garden or at home. So there aren't as many nectar and pollen sources around at the start of spring, obviously. So every flower is really important for queen bumblebees that are looking to start a nest. So you don't need to have a garden to be able to help. You could just have a few pots outside the front door or a window box maybe, and plant some native spring plants like wild primrose or snowdrops. Or if you do have a garden with a lawn, the best thing you could do is to leave your dandelions flower, as these are a really, really important source of nectar in the early spring. So yeah, bit of a short one tonight. But the next meeting is going to be on the 12th of April at 6 o'clock, for those of you who can make it. And yeah, my details and Rose's details are on the slide for anybody who, if you want to get in touch with any of us. But yeah, I'm just hoping for a little bit of feedback about what you guys would like from the group this year, really. So yeah, that's me done.